The views and opinions expressed in Media Litter Sandwich do not reflect on the views of the network, station, studio, website, sponsors, guests, hosts themselves, anyone or anything else associated or even not associated with this podcast. Maybe not even the person that said them. In other words, do your own research and do not sue anyone over what is said on this show.
Welcome to Toaden's Media Litter Sandwich. Of course, I'm Toaden, and you can find Toaden's Media Litter Sandwich on Toaden.com and MediaLitterSandwich.com. If you're getting this because someone sent it to you, you want to see the video version, you can go over to those websites. You can go over to YouTube. You can also just check the description over whatever you're listening on and click that video link. And if you're wondering what else you can listen on, Spotify, Mixcloud, Podbean, Stitcher, whatever. If you want to be the first person and get the uncut versions, go over to Patreon/Toaden. If you want to be the second person, you could go to dvradio.net on Tuesday nights at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I am in the chat room. And the Monday after that is when the podcast is released to everywhere, including the video version. With me today is another podcaster, and he writes more than I do. I don't exactly like that writing portion too much. That's why I've been having a lot of authors on here. I'm a little jealous. I'm also a little jealous of Mohawks. I had my Liberty Spikes going on, but can't drive anymore with them. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi guys, my name is Jack Keesling, and like you said, I'm a writer, and I do have a Mohawk. You can't see it, but it's pink.
Video version's different than the audio version.
Yeah. So I'm a writer, and I published my first book in September of last year, getting ready to release my second book. So pretty fun stuff. I'm not nearly as accomplished of a podcaster as Toaden is, though.
Flatter will get you everywhere.
Yeah, I'm pretty smart, man. I can pick up on that. Yeah. So fun stuff.
We're on DV Radio, and I know you're a veteran, so I just want to make sure I prop that out. And our mutual friends is a DV and a disgruntled guy, so I think we're kind of on the same page as that go.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I know your second book has to do with that a little bit.
It does, yeah. Yeah, no, I served in the Army, did a number of things, but primarily spent my time as a PSYOP soldier and deployed to Afghanistan, did all that goofy stuff. I've been out for, a long time. Yeah. So anyway, so my first book came out in September. It's available on Amazon, and it's called The Fists of Arkin. It is not a sex book, as the name might suggest to some people.
I'm out.
So it's an action adventure novel set in a fictitious medieval time frame and geography. So it's not a fantasy novel. I try not to call it that, because typically we expect with fantasy, dragons, warlocks, magic, stuff like that. And let's be real, I'm just not creative enough to completely create that magical world. So, action adventure novel, fictitious medieval environment. Basically, the book opens with kingdom under attack, overwhelming force, they can't win. King sends his only daughter and heir to the throne away, to run for her life. She winds up in a culture and peoples that she's never even heard of, didn't know existed. And she has to find a way to get along with that culture and to make it through the struggles they're going with while she's trying to define herself as a leader and eventually to get back home. It's a very interesting book. I started writing that when my father was still alive, and put a lot of references in the book to stuff that we enjoyed together. So there's references to some General James Mattis quotes. There's a Lord of the Rings reference in there. There's a bunch of stuff in there that veterans specifically pick up on. Just little nitnoid pieces from military doctrine that I threw in there. Unfortunately, my father passed away before he was able to read the book, so some of those references will forever remain a secret. But yeah.
that action adventure is such a huge genre, and people love doing it. What made you decide? I think you touched on this already, but what made you decide not to include like any magical sorts, like anything that kind of defines it as a fantasy versus action adventure set in a fantasy realm?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I have nothing against fantasy by any stretch. Some of my favorite works are fantasy, and I've played Dungeons and Dragons a number of times with my friends over the years and enjoy that. But I didn't sit down intending to write this book. It started as a game that I was playing with my friends called 3-Word Story, and it turned into this weird little story about this like warrior princess who's leading her troops in a battle. And so just, kind of for fun and as a joke with my friends, I wrote out the first couple chapters of a story based off of that game. And, showed it to my friends, and we thought it was cool, and I put it away. And probably a year later, I was rummaging around in my desk and found the legal pad I wrote those chapters on. I was like, man, this is actually pretty good. Go somewhere with this, and just kept going. And as I continued writing, the characters in the story really told me what was going to happen. I wrote the book, it's my name on the cover, but really those characters told me who they were, what they wanted to do, what they cared about. So the lack of magic and stuff like that in there, I make a joke, it's because I'm not creative enough. But the reality of it is the world didn't tell me that's what it needed. So I didn't write it.
That's cool. I've talked to a number of authors, and one author I interviewed a while back. He used to tell me straight, I got books from this guy where he would put 200 one-page stories. He's like, "Oh yeah, I finished that in like a week." And it's like, "How did you do that?" He's like, "Well, once I get at least 1 or 2 characters, I just ask the characters, and they tell me, and they just do what they do." And until I'm sick of them, and then I figure, and then I go to another character.
Yeah.
When ADD or ADHD works to your favor,
But it's interesting because my next book that comes out hopefully the end of June, which is completely different genre. It's a military conspiracy set slightly in the future from our own age. Very. It's not political, and I make a pointed effort to stay out of politics in it.
Especially nowadays.
Well, and I don't do that for any reason, but I don't want this book to become, the Republican conspiracy theory anthem, or the Democrat, the Republicans are crazy anthem. I didn't want it to be about that. I wanted it to be about something, beyond this surface level politics. So I made a very intentional choice to keep that out of it. But whereas the first book, The Fists of Arkin, basically wrote itself, this book, which is titled A Thin Red Line, that was a much different process. I came up with a base idea, and I knew what I wanted it to look like, but they never told me what they wanted to do. And the more I realized, this group of people that this book centers around, they don't want to be in the situation that they're in. They didn't plan it. They didn't design it. So as I'm pushing through this story, they're doing it because they feel morally obligated to do it, but they don't want to. And I think that's why this book was so much different from the first one.
Yeah, it's not so much hero goes on a hero's journey. This is more as this is a not responsibility. This is just it's military action versus the hero's action. Am I kind of correct?
Yeah, to a degree. So the book centers around a small group of 5 people who, through a course of events, get drawn together, and they're in possession of a stolen government file that proves the American government has been doing some pretty shisty things to actively manipulate the American people. And it's, one of them is former military, one of them is a police officer, one of them is a Walmart loss prevention person, just various backgrounds of these 5 people. They're in this situation, not of their own choosing. But once they're in it and they know what they're doing, they feel that moral obligation, that almost social requirement to take care of this situation, to get that file to the right people. And so it's interesting. Whereas do first book, they pulled me along, and this book, I feel like they're almost pushing back. So it has a different feel, and it's interesting. It's a lot of fun from the writer's perspective.
You learn a lot from the first book and applying that, or is this completely different?
It's completely different in terms of the experience I'm having, but the process is all the same. And I've written probably 10 novels in my life. The one that I put out, The Fists of Arkin, was the first one that I was really like, yeah, this is what I want to go with. Mm-hmm. This is complete and the narrative works and I'm going to go with it. But I've been writing my entire life. I mean, if I had a dollar back for every class I've paid for over the years to learn how to be a better writer, then I wouldn't need to sell books to make money.
So that wasn't your first official book then?
Well, it was my first published work, but okay. I've been writing my entire life. I'll tell you, it's funny. So I was in Afghanistan in, I think 2011, and The Walking Dead was just starting to become a thing. I hadn't heard of it yet. I've never been much of a TV guy. But one of my buddies gave me a copy of season 1 of The Walking Dead before I went overseas, and I didn't really think anything of it, threw it in my bag. Well, I had been working on a zombie novel prior to leaving for that deployment. And of course, I brought my notebooks and stuff with me. So I'm kind of working with it a little bit here and there, as I find downtime. And it was pretty fun. It's the outbreak started in Omaha, Nebraska, which is a place that, if you live in Omaha, I'm sorry about what I'm about to say. I'm not a big fan of Omaha. So it was a lot of fun for me to fictitiously wreck that city.
I visited it before, I believe it.
Yeah. So it was a lot of fun. And I'm jiving with it and the storyline's coming along and I like the characters. And then something told me I need to check out this Walking Dead thing and make sure I'm not duplicating somebody else's, kind of ideas. And I probably should have left it alone. But here's what I found out. As soon as I watched The Walking Dead, I couldn't write zombies anymore because I couldn't do it without writing the same things they already wrote.
Yeah, I started with the graphic novel of The Walking Dead before I watched the series, and it's definitely a different approach. Well, I should say Walking Dead's the same approach as other things, but they were just able to do it for a longer period of time. I mean, that's
but that's the struggle from, so anybody who's trying to create art, I mean, if you want to create a sculpture of, a naked Grecian, well, how do you do that without being influenced by the 10,000 naked Grecian sculptures that have already been made? So to be able to create something pure that's from you, that represents your passion without being influenced by something so impactful, because I mean, let's be real, the first season of The Walking Dead, when you see it the first time, I mean, it grabs you. So then how do you create something that's like that without being influenced by it? So I had to put it away. And I've done that with so many books over the years that I started. And then I was like, yeah, I'm done with this.
Hey, don't touch it. Not until you're done with your own project. When you're done with your own project, then you can touch it and play with it. But not yet. Leave that. Get your hand out of the cookie jar and finish your dinner.
Yep.
You can't have any pudding if you don't eat your meat. So you said you took a bunch of writing classes. So did you go to school for writing or?
No. So I went to college, but I majored in American history with a minor in education. At that time, I thought I wanted to teach high school history and coach high school football. And then my senior year of college, I was student teaching at a high school, and I discovered something very important. I hate teenagers. So, it was bad. When I went to high school, we didn't have cell phones, and the few rich kids that had phones, like they didn't have them out in class or anything like that. And fast forward so many years, and I'm in college, and I'm trying to teach, and these kids are sitting there on their phones, and they just won't even like look in my general direction. And so much of like the army instinct in me wanted to choke slam every single one of those little kids, and I'm like, yeah, I'm in the wrong profession. I can't do this.
Wow, I didn't think high school students were allowed to have their phones.
Well, I mean, it depends on how they enforce that. You can make any rule you want, but if there's no accountability, people are still going to do whatever they want.
Okay, because my nephew only graduated maybe like 5 years ago, and he was always like, no, I can't have it out in the middle of class. I have to wait between class or there's one class I'm allowed, but the other ones, no.
Yeah, I mean, and that makes sense, but just times have changed a lot, and things are different, and it wasn't for me. So it's funny. I do teach for a living, but I teach adults. So
okay. So do you teach at college? If you don't mind me asking, if you don't, I could always edit this out. So what level do you teach? You teach like
No, I'm actually a corporate training facilitator for a company that. So basically, what I do is teach business leaders people-centric leadership, amongst other things. But yeah.
Okay, and this for a single company, or is this like where you're a freelance, or not freelance, but where you go out and do motivational speeches or training for other companies?
No, so I work for one company.
Okay.
And I'm not a motivational speaker. I'm not very motivating because usually
it's internal training.
What's that now?
It's internal to the company training then.
Yeah. So the company I work for is humongous. 1.2 million people work for this company. And so when we talk about training company leadership, it's a lot of people.
Okay. I as soon as you told me the numbers, I got an idea.
Yeah.
Would they happen to have a couple government contracts, maybe in flying things?
Perhaps, but I'm not going to confirm or deny anything about which company I might or might not work.
We'll leave it there. That was my guess. He wasn't confirming or denying, so I could be 100% wrong. We're going to move on. But no, that's really cool. Like my day job has several internal training, like whole training departments, like completely different from one another. And it's really cool for people to get into that and to learn from that and take that. Now, when you're going to college, you're going to teach history. Where you're like, I can use this for writing. Did you think like you were going to write like history, like bending things, or like?
So like, fictitious history.
Yeah, that's it. Fictitious history.
I've thought about it. I'll tell you, the main reason that I centered on history is because my high school history teacher, had a profound impact on my life, and I fell in love with that. And then, my whole family, since our family immigrated to the United States, has served in the U.S. military, including World War II, Korea, Vietnam. And so became very passionate about my family history, and thereby learned a lot about, American history. And, it became important to me. So that's where I chose to focus. And let's be real, I hate math. So
if anyone wants to hear me dive a little more deep in this, go into not my last episode, maybe like 2 or 3 episodes ago, where I talked to Galactic Space Bunnies, I think was her website, where she is a current high school history teacher, and she I can't say the word. She takes states and turns them into people like Italia. And she has a whole comic strip based off of that, with little history lessons and interesting little things like that. But no, let's talk about current. Your leads in both your books are women. Is there a point to that, or just like, hey, this would be cool?
A little column A, a little column B.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll tell you, the Fists of Arkin, female lead, princess, adult. When I first started writing that book, like first draft, she was not a really essential character. I mean, she was in the sense that, she was kind of the package that these trusted guards were carrying. And she was only 8 years old when I wrote the first draft. Didn't intend for her to be a central character. But the more I developed the story and the more the character told me really who she was, I realized that she was not that young. And then a certain scene occurred where some risque business happens with one of the other characters. And I was like, man, I have got to make this girl significantly older. So I didn't sit down intending to write a female lead. Really, she told me, I'm in charge of this business and you're going to put it down on paper the way I say. And I was like, yes, ma'am. And for the second novel, it's interesting because the whole story behind this second novel started as essentially me writing about some of my experiences in Afghanistan, in just getting it out of my head. It's not something I would, ever consider putting out in public. But and then I was looking at it and I was like, I could fictionalize some of this, as a way of getting it away from me and getting it, kind of out as a method of therapy, and something that a counselor I was speaking with at the time suggested was a good idea. So I started working on that. And in order to make it not so personal, I changed a lot of the details about who this person was that was experiencing these things. At the same time, combat exclusion had been ended in the military. So we were seeing the first females going through infantry school and, ranger school, and some of those things were happening. The first females deploying to combat zones as infantry soldiers. And so, it was just something that was on my mind at the time. So I chose to make the character female. And I don't know, I've had people ask me other questions like that on my own shows. And, one of the things that I do in my books is I have a variety of racial identities and, sexual orientations and stuff like that. People ask me if I'm trying to make a social point by that. And the reality of it is I'm not trying to make a social point. What I'm doing, and what I think all artists do, intentionally or otherwise, is create a world that meets the image of the world that I want to see. Now, I personally want to see a world where, skin color, gender, sexual orientation, stuff like that are irrelevant. People just do what they do. And that's how we form, our understanding of the people, is by what they do. And so I create stories and books that feature characters from, every walk of life, because that's the reality that I saw in the military and the reality that I want to see now in the world. So there's no social point to it. It's just something that I do.
Now, you mentioned your podcast, and I got to catch a couple of them, and you do talk about your books, but you also go through new stuff, and you spend a lot of time interacting with the viewers, which you got a lot of people that watch live, which is really cool. Tell me about some of the interaction, and how the heck do you get that many people watching you live?
Well, so I started doing the show almost 2 years ago. I was invited to be a guest on a very good friend of mine's live show. He runs a live show on Saturdays on Facebook called the Veterans Forum. And so I used to live much closer to him, and he invited me to come down to his house and be on the show. And it was a lot of fun. And I was like, you know what? I could do this, as a method of advertising my work and, and stuff. And so I set it up and started running it. And the first time I did it, like 2 people were on it the whole show. And I was like, man, this is a disaster. I'm ugly. Nobody wants to talk to me, but I stuck with it. And I'm sorry, my dog is like climbing all over me. But I stuck with it, and I just started, goofing off and having fun. And that's really what I'm all about. Is one of the things I say all the time is, if I'm not having fun, I'm not going to do it. And it was fun. So I kept doing it. And, then I started playing with technology and, seeing what I could do to make the show more fun and more interactive. So,
yeah, you got some things there. I want to know how you did.
I will tell you how I did it, but I'm going to tell you how I got it first.
Okay.
So I tried to do like multiple platform streaming. So I tried to do Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube all at the same time. And that destroyed my bandwidth. So then I found online software you can use called BeLive. And BeLive was cool because it let you take the comments that people put on Facebook and show them on the screen. And it had a lot of functionality and customization you could do. And it looked really cool, but it was expensive. It's like $35 a month. And my wife considered stabbing me. So, I started looking around for other options, and I found the one that you saw, which is what I use now. And it's a free downloadable software called OBS. OBS is not very user-friendly because it doesn't tell you how to do anything. You got to figure it out yourself.
There's a lot of tutorials, though. Whatever you want to do, there's probably a tutorial for it.
Yeah, but I'm a knucklehead, man. I'm going to force my way through it. So, but once you figure out how to use OBS, you can do a lot of fun stuff with it. How I got so many people on my show, I'm going to be honest, I don't know.
How do you use OBS? Like automatically take people's comments and put them in there? I thought that you have to do manually with OBS.
Yes, you can't do that with OBS without doing it manually. So I don't do that anymore. But
okay. I must have caught an older episode then.
Yeah, you probably saw when I was still using BeLive.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's fun. So like, I have OBS up, and then I've got Facebook up over here, and then it's just, I don't know, man. Part of my success, and you said getting so many people on my show isn't me. It's a couple of people that have been really supportive of the show, and and they share it all the time, and they're talking about it and telling their friends about it, and like it's not me, man, because I'm just a pecker from the sticks with too much time on my hands. You know what I mean? Like I'm not that cool, but for whatever reason, these few select people really care about what I'm trying to do and what I have to say. And they're the reason I'm successful. It's not me. So,
where do you sell your books at?
Amazon. So I'm a very, very firm set independent artist. And the reason that I do that is a lot of times you try to get your art out there and everybody says, oh, well, you got to change this, you got to change this, you got to change this. And I'm not saying that input isn't valid and it may, produce more book sales. But when I think about art, I think about art in terms of music, painting, writing, even food. I mean, anything that you care about, you put effort into is art. When I think about the greatest art in the world, it was art that challenged people. And it wasn't necessarily what, quote unquote, society thought they wanted in the moment. And that's the stuff that we remember. That's the stuff that makes an impact, And so when I think about my work and the art that I create in my books, I want it to be mine. I don't want it to be somebody else's, or I don't want it to be mine filtered through somebody else. I want it to be mine. So, I don't use professional editors. I don't use a publishing house. I design my own book covers. I mean, everything. Like the Fists of Arkin, the one that's out there right now. I'm not a painter, but I painted the book cover for it, and that's why it looks like shit. Oh, sorry.
Oh, you good?
So I'm Amazon. Amazon's the whole deal. $3 for the digital download, $12 for the hard copy version. And when I say a hard copy, it's a paperback, but it's a beautiful paperback. Like the quality is very high, and the cover has a really nice feel to it. And yeah, no, it's good stuff.
That's awesome. So you're a self-publisher, you go through Amazon, therefore you can reduce the price cheaper than what some of the other publishing companies are. $3 digital download, that's not too bad. And for everyone that's like, no, I don't want, Amazon does this or that. I look, if you got to go through Amazon, use Smiled on Amazon. No cost to you, and a little bit of money goes towards a charity of your choice. So there you go. You can feel at least a little bit better if you want to go shop on Amazon. Use Smile.Amazon. Pick the charity of your choice. Doesn't cost you anything else, and they get something. And my charity of choice is DV Farm. So if you want to learn about that, go to dvfarm.org. Why am I promoting DV Farm? Well, if you really want to learn, just tune into dvradio.net and probably a commercial will come up for it. Or just go to dvfarm.org and check it out. It's totally worth checking out.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Amazing organization. I mean, DV6 is kind of old and crusty, but
You prefer DV? I Chappie. He's not DV Chappie, right? He's just Chappie. I don't know.
Yeah, he's just Chappie. So DV6 is dysfunctional, and then Chappie is disgruntled. Yeah.
Although he used to be on Dysfunctional Radio as well. Yeah. Disgruntled Discussions.
Yep.
Which I'll be talking to him again in a couple weeks. My former co-host from Disgruntled Discussions, even though I was never part of Disgruntled Veterans. They asked me to host on the show when I was never like part of Disgruntled Veterans. I was like, how about a temporary? How about we just do a temporary thing and see if we actually can get along and like see how this goes.
Sure.
We did like 4 or 5 episodes and like, all right, we're going to take I think it was Nevermore. She's like, we're going to take a vacation and then we'll record when we come back. Silence. That was the last episode. I don't know if that was the last episode they ever aired, but that was the last one I've ever heard about.
Huh. I think probably before I got involved.
Oh, so what's been like something you didn't expect? I know you have a day job, and you spend a lot of time writing and doing your podcast, and because you talk about stories, so you have to curate all of that. What's something you didn't expect?
Oh man, a lot of things. I didn't expect the feeling when my novel first was published, and then a couple of things happened within that first couple of months that were just amazing. So I was at work one day, and this kid that I've never seen before, I have no idea who he is, walks up to me and he's like, "Oh my God, you're Jack Keesling." And I'm like, "Yeah, who are you?" And he's like, I have your book. Will you sign it for me? And I'm like, what? And I never expected something like that to happen.
And he had your book with him.
Yeah. So it turned out his wife was in one of my classes, and Facebook stalked me for whatever reason after the class, found the book, they bought it, they loved it. He was coming out there for one of my classes. So it was really cool. But in that moment, it was just like, I didn't expect how amazing that would feel and how horrifyingly terrible it would feel at the same time. Because now I'm like, you think that I'm this like amazing person who wrote this book, but I'm actually really stupid, you know?
You think I'm like this, but I'm really kind of a jerk.
Yeah.
I really don't. Even if I'm not a jerk, I just don't want to give you that impression.
So I didn't expect that. And, unfortunately my father died a little more than a month after the book came out. And I didn't expect a lot of things that came with that. So, I get the call at work, mad dash, get home.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad's, his end table sitting by his spot on the couch. My book was sitting on his end table with his glasses on top of it, and he was a big part of the encouragement for me to believe that I could actually, get that book out there and make it matter. And so just to know that, he was working on it, he didn't get to finish it, but he was working on it. And that made me feel really good, but also hurt really bad at the same time. And I went through this phase where I couldn't work. I couldn't write because every time I did, that's all I could think about. But then once I got through it and I got back to writing, it's just like, there's that motivation. You know what I mean? Like every time I think about maybe this isn't good enough, I just hear my dad's voice in my ear telling me, stop talking to yourself like that. Like, so that's awesome. And you're right. I am busy. So, I have a 2-hour drive to get to work every day. So, I spend 4 hours in the car every single day. And then I come home. I have about 2.5 hours from the time I get home to the time I've got to be in bed. And I think it drives my wife crazy, but I get home, we eat dinner real fast. And then it's like, I'm in front of the computer and I'm working, and then like weekends, Saturdays are shot because I have my show on Saturdays and I've got to curate everything for the show. And then, by the time the show's over, now I've got to do quality checks and make sure the broadcast went up right and everything else. I mean, and so Saturdays are a mess. And by the time I hit Sunday, I'm so exhausted. She's like, "Hey, baby, let's go do something." And I'm like, "Will you just please let me die?" But, but she's amazing and she knows what I'm trying to do. And she knows this is something I'm passionate about. And, this isn't something I want to put a couple of books out into the world and then just keep doing my day job. Like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I love writing. I love sharing stories. And, I've had the opportunity to see what happens when somebody reads my work and their life is impacted in some way by that. I've had the opportunity to see that happening. And I think that we look at the world around us and it's so negative. It's so negative. Mm-hmm. Everybody's mad at everybody else and everybody's blaming this person and that person. Everybody's so negative. But the way we make the world better is by creating something positive. Creating something positive, whether that's, cooking something or making a painting or writing or, whatever you designing video games, whatever you do, podcasts, it doesn't matter. Whatever you do, if you create something positive, you're taking an active role in making the world a better place. So when I think about my writing and what I'm doing, like that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to be a positive impact on this world and in the only way that I know how to do it. So, she knows what I'm trying to do. She knows why I care about this. And fortunately she likes my books. So, You
think it'd be different if she didn't like them?
Yeah, no, it would be.
Honey, so did you read this revision? I really, I can't afford an editor right now. You mind checking this out?
I kind of hate it. Can you just like leave me alone? Yeah, no, I'm one of those lucky few people who got to marry my absolute best friend in the whole world. So if she told me that my books were trash, I would believe her. And so, yeah, I mean, it would be devastating because like there are very few people on this planet whose opinions actually really mattered to me at the core of who I am. And she's one of them. So if she told me I was a trash writer, I'd be like, all right, I'm hanging it up.
Okay. So we just had a little discussion that's going to be in the uncut version, maybe not all of it, but most of it. What's like time management? What's your biggest distraction right
now? Borderlands 3 was my biggest distraction.
Video games are tough, man. You want to take the time to play them, and at the same time, you want to keep playing them.
I've always said for years that video games aren't a struggle for me because there's not that many that I really, truly love.
Mhm.
But Borderlands is one of the series that I love, and Borderlands 3 came out, and I played it all the way through so many times, and I just couldn't stop playing it. And then my wife and I play through it co-op mode, and it's just, yeah, that sucked up a lot of my time for a couple of months.
Especially when you have an enabler there. What's something you wish people would ask you more about?
Oh man, I
Because
mean,
I know you get a lot of questions on your podcast. You make that a point to answer on them. What's something you ever go, man, why don't someone ask me about this right here?
I mean, honestly, like my book, we talk about everything on my show, and I talk about my books, but and sometimes I'll post questions, be like, "What's your favorite character? What was your favorite moment in the book?" And I get one or two people that answer back, but I want to talk about my book more, man. Like I invested 2 years of my life in this thing. Talk to me about it,
Yeah. I'm creating worlds here, man.
But I mean, everybody that's on my show, I mean, it's great people. We've got a mix of veterans and civilians, and we got all different age groups and demographics that watch this show pretty regularly, and it's fun. We talk about a lot of stuff, and it's really cool. My fondest hope is that as more of my work gets out into the world and I publish more books, that we can spend some more time talking about, what they thought when they read this section or what they thought of that character and stuff like that. But, I mean, whatever. I just enjoy the conversations.
I feel like if I wrote a book, and I feel like I'd be asking too much, because doing a podcast, I mean, I've been on quite a few podcasts, and some more popular than others. This is more of a passion project for me. An excuse for me to hang out with people and to learn new things. For me to wonder I wonder if someone's going to ask me about the podcast. Usually the only time people do is if they want information for their own podcast. Asking for a fan is too much. Just be grateful you enjoy what you do. Now shut up and turn on your mic.
Well, and what's cool is when the first book was getting ready to release, and I'm sitting there, and everybody's like, the few people that read pre-release copies of it and stuff, they're telling me, "Oh my God, this thing is going to be huge. We love it. It's going to be amazing. You're going to sell, tons of copies. How's it going to feel when you're J.K. Rowling, and stuff like that." And people kind of hype me up, and I love that. I appreciate that my friends and my family gas me up. It's awesome. We got to do that for our friends. Yeah. But most of the time I'm a pragmatist. So I'm sitting there and I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, look, here's the deal. Nobody really knows who I am. So you chuckleheads, my friends and my family are going to buy copies. So I'm going to sell 10 copies. I mean, half of you can't afford to buy it anyway, so I'm going to 10 copies and this thing is going to die, But here's the thing. I didn't write it for them. I wrote it for me. So if I sell 1 million copies and I get the movie deal and, and all my wishes come true and, daisies and unicorns rain down from the sky, fantastic. But if I never sell another copy of any book I ever write, I don't care, because I didn't write it for them. I wrote them for me because it's what I love. So, I mean, and I feel like if you're making art with the goal being to make a lot of money, you're doing the wrong thing. Absolutely. If you're making art because you believe in it and then you happen to make a lot of money along with it, hey, good for you. That's awesome. Because art only matters when it comes from a place inside of your heart that's not fueled by greed. So
you have 2 books, 2 totally different stories. You think you'll extend on either one of them in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Fists of Arkin, the one that's available on Amazon now, already has a plot line done for the second novel, which is what I will begin working on as soon as I'm done with the one I'm working on right now. That is called The Tears of Arkin, and it will follow on the events that happen at the end of that. And then the one that comes out hopefully end of June, A Thin Red Line, is actually the second book in the series, which seems a little strange, but I did it on purpose. So I'll go back and write the first book after this one is completed, A Thin Green Line, which will focus on the main character's journey becoming one of those first female infantrymen and her experiences in Afghanistan. And then the final book in that series will be, I don't want to give away too much of what's going to happen, but it'll essentially be the Second American Civil War. So if I continue the Arkin universe past the second book, I don't know. I have no intention to do that right now. And frankly, when I finished the first one, I had no intention of ever writing a second one, but then those characters were in the back of my mind screaming to me that they weren't done yet. So But I got a bunch of other stuff that I want to get to, other projects, other books that I want to write and stories I want to tell. So, it's kind of one of those things when it's time for that story to live its life, it'll come up, So
Jack, thank you for coming on. Really appreciate your time. Go ahead and prop everything you want to prop, man.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that. I want to give a shout out to Kelly Pippin at the Veterans Forum, and he's also the lead singer-songwriter of a outlaw country band called Something Like Yesterday. Incredible human being, incredible veteran, just a stand-up guy in every sense of the word. He has a show on Facebook at the Veterans Forum every Saturday. He goes on at 1:00 Eastern time. So check him out. And then if you're not military, but you're interested in military stuff, you've got to check out Token Civilian Friends on Facebook. It's a very good friend of mine runs that page. And that's what it's for. It's for all those folks who love the military and love supporting what we do, but don't want to join the veterans groups because they feel like they don't fit in because they're not one of us.
That's really awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome. His page isn't growing nearly as fast as it should for how awesome he is and how awesome that message is. But I mean, he's all about bridging that gap. He is not a veteran himself, but I tell you what, the dude is family. So
yeah, because I've been on veteran groups where it's like all these, a bunch of civilians want to come in and totally understand. You're supporting people. You totally understand. Awesome. But not every veterans group is made for that.
Right.
I'm in a reunion group. I've been out since 2005, and one of my units, we have a reunion group on there, which is just for people that are in our unit. And our unit started maybe 6 months before I got in the fleet and ended 2 years or 3 years after that. So it's only 4 years worth of people that have ever been in that one unit. We know who each other are.
Yeah.
We were an experiment. We know who was in it. And still every week I get people like, well, I would just want to support all the unit. Like that's not us, man. That's really cool, but that's not us.
Yeah. So that's you. If you're not military, but you want to support, military, pages and veterans and stuff like that, check out Token Civilian Friend. It's awesome. And the guy does 22 push-ups every single day. As tribute to veteran suicide, post the videos online. Just an incredible human being that I'm very, very proud to know and call part of my family. So yeah. And then please check out my book on Amazon. You can find it by searching Jack Keesling or The Fists of Arkin on Amazon. And it'll take you to the links for the digital download if that's your preference, or the hard copy if you prefer that.
And what's the name of your podcast and where can they find it?
Oh, yeah. So I actually don't post the podcast anywhere. I just do my live show. And they can find the book at Jack Keesling Books. Yeah. And that goes on every Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
So you can listen to your friend's show and then do yours right afterwards.
Yep. And just be forewarned, my show has some pretty fantastical language.
And of course, this is Toaden's Media Litter Sandwich, and you could find this at Toaden.com, MediaLitterSandwich.com. You could participate in conversations on Facebook. If you look for Media Litter Sandwich Group, or go to the Facebook page or whatever else you want. There's a million ways to reach out to me. Comment, comment, rate, subscribe, put your reviews up, whatever app you're listening on. Feel free to reach out if you want to watch the video version. There's a link down in the descriptions, or you can go to YouTube /ToadenK. And if you want to hit that subscribe on YouTube, hit that bell too, so you get notifications. Otherwise, you'll probably never see anything what happens after you hit subscribe. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed our discussion, and may the algorithms be in your favor.
And the next episode of Media Litter Sandwich.
Well, my name's Brandon O'Brien. I am a small business owner, Marine Corps veteran. I do wood turning. More specifically, I specialize in custom-made wood rings. I like having the story behind them. But veteran suicide is a huge, huge problem. Designed the disgruntled ring to be a reminder that you've got a community behind you.
Like, that's not what you set out to do, I'm assuming.
No, not even a little bit. I hate people for the most part.